Hello everyone, and welcome back. I decided I was going to go ice fishing today, but it's really cold and windy out, and the wind is the main thing. It's just hard to set up your ice house when it's really windy and it's just one person, so I thought I'm going to stay back. And I brought this chair back, if you remember the last time I was up to the tent, that last weekend of deer hunting, because I want to make some more of these for around the campfire, or the fire pit that we have here. So I thought today would be a good day to come out here and just get started on one of these. Basically, I'm just bored out of my mind, so let's do some kind of a project. I picked up these are those 3-inch fence posts, which is what I make the chairs out of. And I picked these up, it had to be a couple of months ago, and I was hoping to get more of a selection. I pretty much bought all the good ones because I need them when they're smaller like this. When they get real big, it just doesn't work real well, and a lot of them, they go like from this, a 3-inch, up to almost 5-inch in the same stack. So anyway, I think I'll have enough to make one chair out of this. It's easier if you can do multiple chairs because you can cut 10 of the same pieces at one time, and then when you come to do it, like if I do a chair right now, then when I come back to do another chair later, you have to measure everything all over again and almost like learn the process again. But this is all that they had, and this is what I bought. And right now, this time of year, they're not replenishing fence posts up here in Minnesota because there's still 4 feet of frozen ground. Nobody's putting in any fence posts. I have most of the main log type pieces written down here now. I'm going to go ahead and start cutting those. A couple things that I do different, like here they've like flattened this area out to get, I don't know why, I mean they have a lag bolt and a washer on here. I just use a straight lag bolt that just goes all the way in like this, and I bury it in the log. So I don't flatten this out. I don't have anything to flatten it out like that. Sometimes I think the first one I tried to flatten them out, and I don't know what tool they use to do that with. These two wouldn't be bad, and the only reason I say that is because when you cut the pieces the same size, it doesn't mean that they'll all fit together the same, because all the logs are different size this way, and then with this flattened out, it can get to be a problem. And the hardest part about these chairs is when you put them in there, you've got to make sure that this back part is dropped somewhat. Otherwise, it's not as comfortable if it's just flat across. I've got 2 up at the tent that ended up being more flat across than at an angle, and they're still fine, but like the 2 that are up on the porch of the tent, I do have it back a little bit, as well as the double seat that has the table in the middle of it. That one was good, but the other 2 that are on the lake side, they are up higher, and they're just not quite as comfortable. When you do these, not everything has to be the same size, but you're going to want the 2 front legs to be about the same, the 2 back legs about the same, so it doesn't look odd. All these are round posts, and then this one here is one of the regular, like a 3.5-inch landscape log that's flat and flat. I use these for the short pieces that the seat actually sits on, so I'm not using up one of these. And we'll see what I've got. These work pretty good. They're not the best, but they do work pretty good. But the first thing, I just need to find 2 of them that are about the same. 2 7/8. That's pretty close right there. This one is rougher looking than this one over here, though. Let's see. 2 3/4. 3 1/8. The other thing that gets kind of tricky is you cut this angle, and then I mark it like this, and you have to cut the same angle here, but you've got a round hole. You don't have anything flat to keep it from doing this or this. So you kind of have to guess at it. So I always mark it, then I put it like this and get it against the blade so it's how it should be, and then carefully try to move it without spinning it. I mean, it doesn't, well, it should be exact, but it doesn't end up being exact all the time. You're hitting against dirt on the bottom, so at least I am where I put it. It would be more critical if you were going to go against like a concrete or a paver type slab. I mean, you can always adjust them afterwards, but alright, so we've got the two front legs, and this is the top that goes where your backrest is. This is the top piece that goes above it. Well, the back legs are 30 inches long, but there's a 15-degree angle. So on the top it's going to be just a short 15-degree. I call it just a short angle and then a long angle. And now that measurement on that was from here. I used that one because, I mean, these are old chairs. I was doing a job on Gull Lake in central Minnesota, and we were working on a cabin. I mean, that place was huge, right on the lake, and we were doing all this remodeling. And when I was there, we stayed up in the, there was like a garage with a guest cabin above it. In fact, on Joe and Zach's Survival, Zachary and I's very first video that we posted about bug out bags was done in like the living room area of this little area above the garage. That's all. And anyway, I got these chairs. The cabin next door had this set sitting around the campfire, so I was over there trying to measure them. I wanted to go do that and everything, and anyway, I ended up going and talking to the owner, asking permission if I could go over and take a bunch of pictures, take a bunch of measurements and everything, and he says, how about you just take them out of here? He says, I can't stand them. We're replacing them with something new because they're pretty rotted, you know. It looked like this, which I love this look. And so I took them, but the bottom is already rotted out, so I have to use that one, which has a longer, the leg is not as rotted to, you know, guess at what this was. That's also the same place where I got the orange couch pull-out bed thing that's up at the tent, was in the upper part where we were staying, in that upper part of the garage. And it was covered with all kinds of pieces of insulation, just raw fiberglass insulation. So I vacuumed and vacuumed and vacuumed and steam cleaned that thing, and it was nasty. But it's been up there now for over 10 years, so it's turned out pretty good. But anyway, wherever I started, I have a 30-inch measurement here, but you can see here where this is flattened out. I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to just carry this up like it was a round one, and I'm going to cut it back. I can see it's about 3/4 of an inch, so I can just butt it into the new leg, and we're pretty close. The problem that happens with this, since I don't have a blueprint to go off from, and I'm just using this as a template, if I cut this piece and this piece the same, and then slap these together, that's going to raise it up some. And then, like when I need to set this back one, I'm going to measure down here to it. And if it's not going to be the right measurement if I don't flatten this out. And since I'm not, I need to cut this shorter so that everything pretty much works out. Another thing I don't do on the chairs is these here. You know, they started with 3/4, actually looks like a little bit more, probably 1-inch board. And then they have this rounded off, which I will smooth it out in the front. But then they go down, and it's only about 1/4 inch thick back here. Maybe a little bit more, not quite 3/8. Anyway, it's a nice look. but you don't really notice it when you sit on it. And all the chairs, I only have the two of them like this. There used to be one that was the two chairs with the table in between, and that one rotted away. But the place where it rots is right here in this narrow part. So I leave it the same size board the whole way back, and then I just round this with the belt sander so that you're not catching your leg on it. And I mean, it might not look quite as elegant, but it will last much longer. Kind of show you what I mean. You can see where it's thick right there. And I don't know if you can see it, but by the time you get back there, they have it quite thin. And that water sits back there, and the pine needles, and eventually that rots. Let's go this way. Okay, so it says 30, but we're going to take 3/4 off, so we'll go 29 1/4. For future reference, so I can just watch this video and I have to make the other ones and I remember what this is, roughly about a 47-degree angle, and I can cut that on the miter box. This one gets a little bit more tricky trying to figure out that it's the same as on top. That's pretty close. I mean, these aren't perfect, but that's going to do. It's pretty good. Now when you're doing these, since all of these log legs are not the same thickness, this is the main front one here. I just have this one sitting here right now. That's cut the same length as this other one, and I have 19 3/8 between the legs. Here I have 19 5/8. That's pretty dang close. I don't think I'm going to mess with that. Sometimes it will be off like almost an inch, so then you'll have to take like a 1/4 inch off of this to get that to suck over. But once I put the legs in there, that's going to suck it over a little bit too. I think we'll be alright. But now we have to figure out where this goes. And I instead of having this flat, because you don't know exactly where it is, I can turn that afterwards to go flat. I just needed to get a high point that's exactly the same here and here, and now I can level back over to get where this one is. But even leaving it like this, you're not going to have a problem. If you look at those, they have a flat top on them, but it doesn't hit on the old one. It just hits on this upper part. These though are a little less than half the price of what these are. So if I can use these in here for this with the flat side on it, I save a little bit of money. Well, the floor right here is pretty level, so I am just going to just trying to see how much the drop is. It's almost a 2-inch drop. That's from out here though. Let's see if we go right here. Still about 2 inches. So doing this, I'm just going to level on the one side. And then we're going to come straight down the 2 inches. So it looks like we're going to push for around 11 inches down. So now what I'll do is I'll measure this. We're just going to check this a couple different ways. And I mean, I'm measuring back here, and up here is where we measured the other one, which is it's a little bit under 2. Let's just go off this back side, and I'm getting about 2¼ inches. So then I'm going to go up here and set it at the same, but then what we're going to do is we're going to sight across this and the front, because no matter what happened, if this is down and this is level, then everything's going to look off. Well, now I have this set so that on the level it looks good. And what I do, what I like these two, is I take this edge and try to get that pretty flush with here. Same thing over there, just so I have some kind of a reference to go off. And then we go down like this and we sight it with the front one. And you see how that's pretty close when we get to the top. So I don't have anything that's kind of going downward here or anything. So right there is where I want to put it. And I like to mark this so I've got 2 different planes, because there's a good chance when you're drilling or screwing something's going to move, and I can bring it back. And if you don't have 2 different planes to mark, you can always come up and put a pencil mark here and a pencil mark right here. So you make sure that those 2 points meet up when you have to bring it back to where it's supposed to be. When I'm using this type of a lag bolt, I like to bury it so it's flush, so nobody walks by and like catches their pant leg on it or something. It just makes it a little bit more safe. Well, it's after 12 o'clock. I'm going to run inside and have some lunch, and then we'll come out and continue working on this. So our two back pieces coming up we're making them 19.5 inches long. The other ones were almost 20, but they flattened out part of that top log, so I'm making it a little bit shorter. And it looks like a 15-degree angle hitting that back part is perfect for how far back you're gonna sit. For these two uprights, I've got the 15-degree angle on the bottom. Matches up nice. These were 14.5 inches apart outside to outside, so I did the same thing here. And now I've just got a couple of construction screws holding it here. After this whole thing gets together and I know I don't have to make any adjustments, I'll come in underneath with a couple of the lag bolts again to really tie that in together, and I know it's not going to come apart. But for right now, if I have to adjust anything, it's easier for me to pull from the top than to have to flip it over and start all over again. So there's that. This one is 16.5. When I set that first one, I sighted across this one to make it the same as this one. And now we don't care about that. Now I'm doing this one and setting it with that one because eventually this chair will be its own entity. And I could get off a little bit doing it the other way.
was shelled 5 days ago. She was running for cover when she got hit with multiple shrapnel injuries.
Well, for any of you that are following along, these are cut at 20 inches long, and I brought them back just to the back of this here. It really doesn't matter where you put them, as long as they're all the same up front. And then I roughly did this with the belt sander. I'll go over it with my palm sander after this. I was going to use the little trim screws that I have, but now, I would use the 2.5 inch in here, and each box now is like $10. And I have all of these construction screws that are good for green treated or anything. And for those, I have a ton of them. So it's like, this isn't the only chair I'm going to make. I'm going to make more of them, so let's just use these. The same thing I did up at the tent. It's like, it's just a chair, screw it in there. I don't care. But somebody might mention that. I cut these first, they were 21, rough cut, and then I cut them down to 20. And then these here right now are cut at 27. I believe the tallest one is 25, but I like to put these in, and then we'll take and mark them, and then I'll cut them off. So that's how I did the other ones. And the first one starts about a 1/2 inch over here. And can you guys even see that? Let me move that camera for you. So I'm going to go at this point here about a 1/2 inch over. And here I'm going to be about a 1/2 inch onto this. So like my first one's going to be right somewhere in there. And I like to do, just like I did down here, do the outside one, exactly center the center one, and then you can eye this one in the middle. Because if you try to do it on this side and get it spaced, I guarantee you're going to screw it up by the time you get over there. When I do these also, I get this bottom corner to be about flush with the bottom here. Once again, it really doesn't matter what you do, as long as you do it the same on both sides. Nobody will ever know the difference, but if you do more than one chair, make sure you do them the same way. And once again, I'm just going to use these, I think these are like a GRK screw. These are 9 by 2.5, and they have the T25 head, which is just my favorite of all of them. And also, like if you're shoveling snow or if you're hauling wood and you bump against the chair, with these screws in here, it's not going to pull the screw. It'll break the board before it'll pull the screw. I like to bury that head about an 1/8 inch below the surface also. With the wood swelling and shrinking and stuff, I don't want to have any screw heads that are poking through. Okay. On these here, I went with a 3 3/8 for the width of it. And these here, I ripped them at 1 7/8 and then 2 times through the planer. So they're just a 1/16 under 1 7/8. So 1 13/16. When I ran these boards through the planer so I could reclaim them because they're old deck boards, I did them down to 3/4 of an inch. At least my thing says 3/4. They're just a little bit under. You can tell when you grab them that the little gauge on there is off a little bit, but I was shooting for 3/4. You could probably go down as low as a 1/2. I normally wouldn't even measure that, but since I'm doing a video, otherwise I would have just eyed it so that these look pretty good and they would have been pretty much right on. feels about the same. Everything feels nice. The back is dropped. Yep, turned out pretty good. Okay everyone, well thanks a lot for watching. That's how I make, I don't even know what these things are called. I just call it like a log campfire chair. And I've made them all pretty much exactly the same. I need to make 3 more of these. And I'd like to make one of the doubles with the table in the middle. And then also a table, probably 2 more tables, just separate ones for between. So I'll have 2 sets of 2 chairs and 1 set that's like a little couch thing. I know people are going to ask about how much for material I have into this. I probably have $60, and I have the deck boards, you know, they're just refurbished. So if a person was going to build something like that, you'd have to charge about $150 for it. And the only way you would be able to really make money on it is if you were building like 10 or 20 of them, so that you could cut all the parts. Doing one at a time takes a long time, but if you were doing 5 or 6 of these, you could cut all the parts. Once that part's done, or you know, put it all together, sand it, and then you'd kind of get a system going. First one always takes the longest. I will see you guys on the next video.